Well, is it top down or bottom up? As they say, bottoms up? Yeah, as I talk about energy, and well, of course, this also relates to a certain extent with politics and the government, and blah blah blah. And I really would kind of wish I didn't even have to talk about the fact that we have a government or that there is politics in this country. It's always been sort of a battle, but lately it's really stinky. It's really smelly. It's the most rotten condition I have ever seen here. But, is it all about top down or bottom up? I have had my beliefs, which are only hypothetical, but I tend to think that most of the more important things, really, that have ever happened, pretty much all happened from the bottom up in culture and in government. That, if you have, equal rights or voting rights or stuff for minorities and people of color, whereas there were politicians in Washington that agreed with that idea, along the line there have been a number of them, and helped promote it. That is not where these ideas come from. The ideas are, in my opinion, grassroots. Everything starts in the street and moves upwards, and then somewhere somebody writes a bill and takes credit for what was done sometimes, this is what I see. I mean, I'm a good example. I'm not a religious man, but I'll have to admit Jesus Christ made one heck of a stir on this planet, still reverberating over 2,000 years later. Now, if we look at it from top down, no, the top wanted him dead. He was a big problem because he was affecting things in the street that were running from the bottom up. Eventually, Roman emperors who had been tossing Christians to the lions, well, it was Constantine who realized that, my goodness, these people are willing to go into the arena and face a lion for what they believe in. This is powerful. I said, none of my Roman citizens would do that. And so Christianity was adopted as the religion of Rome, the Holy Roman Church, which eventually became the Catholic Church. So here we see, well, okay, so Constantine was a smart enough emperor to realize he could gain a lot of power and control by adopting Christianity rather than throwing Christians to lions. There was more value in keeping them alive. And so he did. And, it changed a lot of stuff, but it ran from the bottom up, not from the top down. Okay. The only top down part was that Constantine was bright enough to understand. So I see most things really as being that way. I see the civil rights movement as being that way. I see women's rights as being that way. I mean, it's all of this stuff. People out here say, this needs to change. Hopefully, when that happens in our society, what people are asking for and demanding is valid, smart, a step forward in our social evolution, and not the kind of garbage and chaos you see currently where they climb the Capitol building and so on. Want to tie Nancy Pelosi to a rail, tar and feather, whatever. So both movements, positive and negative, easily start out here in the street. But the main reason I brought this up is that Well, when I talk about forms of alternative energy, when I start to talk about energy, because, I'm the green garden guy, and energy is not necessarily gardening, but energy certainly qualifies as green, so I figure it kind of fits the profile. Plus, it's important to me, and it's something that I've been involved in, so we're all hearing about it. Well, I get back a lot of comments, and I had actually asked for comments recently about this, especially from people who actually had the systems, were using systems that were solar or wind. I don't really care what your alternative energy source might be there, and people who had EVs, the electric cars already, because some of us do. And I did. Thank you. I got back some really great comments on that from people who've had the experiences, and the vast majority of the people with the experiences were like really happy about it, Now, the government, going back to Carter's administration, that I believe was where it first started, has been involved in the promotion of alternative sources of energy. Now, there's been a political battle on this that is mindless, and it has to do with mostly the campaign contributions that are made by fossil fuel companies. That's really the basis of the problem. I guess if we didn't have campaign contributions from corporate industry and people connected to that stuff, maybe this wouldn't be so potent. But, it seems like most of the good ideas, tax rebates, and incentives and help that we get from the government on alternative energy, they seem to come from the left, and generally speaking, the right battles them down as if they're poison or cobras, all the people in Washington get a certain amount of campaign contributions from fossil fuel companies. So everybody's got the energy companies in their pockets, all right? But it does tend, if you look over time, Carter implemented some great alternative energy programs. Reagan destroyed them, The thing stayed pretty well crushed until Obama got in, and then they implemented some more. And I wrote on the tax credits for what I did from the residue of that administration, and so on. Of course, Biden comes in, and now he's being accused of attempting to destroy the national energy system. It's going to be a hard one to figure this one out, because with what happened with Russian oil and inflation, with costs going up right now, I suppose there'll be some people like me who will say, we've had it with this. No more. And make a switch to become their own independent energy producers and get themselves off of the addiction to fossil fuels. On the other hand, there will be others who have already blaming the government for what's happened. Okay, blame don't do much good, frankly, is my opinion on that stuff. But and will resist. They don't want to make changes. They'll come up with every excuse under the sun why it's not feasible for them. Yeah. So we're going to see it both ways. So whether this inflation and Russian oil crisis thing that we've gotten ourselves into is going to push us further into the agenda of alternative energy or not is kind of difficult to predict. We'll see, But when I get comments back on this, so many times, well, the government did this, or, if the government was, they're all corrupt, or, these are scapegoats, see. They don't make any sense, actually, if you're standing from my viewpoint, where I realize everything's bottom up, man. The longer you point fingers at the people on top to claim that they're the reason that you're not having what you need, not getting what you want, that they've been obstructing you and they're causing problems or whatever, the longer you do that, the less time or interest you're going to have in doing this and saying, geez, why don't I just grab my darn boots, jack them up, and get going? People claim I'm a leftist all the time. Well, trust me, the bootstrap Republican right-wing belief, the old-time Jeffersonian right-wing belief that the citizens in their independence can grab their own boots and make stuff happen, that it's on your back, see. I believe that stuff. I've been living it my entire life. So, any people want to finger who I am and what I am, sorry, you're going to have a hard time figuring that out because I'm such a mix of ideas. My viewpoint, my political platform is common sense. Yeah. Truth, common sense, better judgment, and I'm forward thinking, see. It's not the next quarter for me. It's not even the next year. My brain is pretty much, in the 7 generations thing in sustainability. Well, frankly, that isn't anything in government. Sustainability doesn't mean anything in Washington. Not really. So my political party does not exist. And what I really wish a lot of Americans would get over, politics here too, and realize that for the most part, the rest of you, your political party doesn't really exist either. Not really. I'll bet if we open up your heart and have a look and say, okay, what does this person really feel? What do they believe? What are they getting? Chances are they're not getting what they want. None of us ever do. It's by committee. Okay. Government can help. Government can help. The government can also hinder. They're the doorkeeper. They make laws, right? Laws are basically the doors in and out one way or the other. They're a jail cell door that slams behind you, or they're a pathway to freedom. You never know what they're going to come up with. It's going to be a mixed bag. All the time it's a mixed bag. But it still starts from the bottom up. If this country is to get itself off of fossil fuel, if we are to stop using coal, and we're stop running our cars on oil, for instance, unstable, holy smoke, look at what's happening, it's illogical, it's irrational even, that we haven't made the change already. But, again, when I say that, people point at the government. No. Joe Biden isn't going to buy you an EV, okay? Joe Biden isn't going to make a decision to put solar panels on your house. Joe Biden isn't going to be the one to make a decision to put a windmill up on the hill in the back of your farm. You are. Yeah, it's on your backs, each and every one of you. Now, again, people can make the darndest excuses for why they won't do anything about it. Well, my attitude towards that is, well, then, help them suffer. The price at the pump keeps going up and up and up. And, this affects everybody, including me, all right, even though I don't hardly use any petroleum, all right? Petroleum is mostly an oil that I use to keep my guns working right. That's about it. And I can switch to hemp oil and it'll probably work just as well. So it's really not that important in my life at all, except the whole rest of the darn nation is addicted to fossil fuel. We've never gotten over that. It's a neurotic condition, frankly, and it's powered by some very rich and powerful people who want to stay rich and powerful. And as long as we go along with them, it's going to keep going that way. To make a change, there's always a certain amount of pain. Yeah, in the case of what I'm proposing is that we switch our energy at the bottom. Okay, well, it's gonna cost you some money. Definitely, at the very least, it's going to cost you some money. Now, the one advantage you have right now, as far as that's concerned, is there is probably almost no ceiling on how far energy can go up. And in the case of Putin, he's a madman, and he is not going to stop what he's doing. If the Russians rein him in themselves, we might get some control here. But as long as he's still around, still engaged in this whole thing, I don't see how sanctions or guns or anything else are going to stop the man. He's just that kind of a character. So this will destabilize world energy for a long, long time to come, possibly. It's going to be your winter heating oil. It's going to be the natural gas you use, and so on. And so right now you're seeing it at the pump, but you're going to start to feel it left and right from many different directions. And here's a situation where one nut job over in a country that I've never visited can create this much chaos, okay? And it's mostly, as far as each and every American is concerned, over energy. Now, we also have this whole thing about, making the world safe for democracy, and it's not right to just invade a sovereign nation like that, and so on. So there's some philosophical viewpoints that most Americans have that find this repugnant. We have a lot of people in this country from the Ukraine who have relatives there, or people like myself who had Ukrainian friends, and so we have connections. There's connections otherwise, but mostly this whole thing's going to be about the energy because of what we did with Putin. It isn't going to go away. It's going to get worse. Right now, interest rates are very low compared to most of my life. So even though there's inflation, and energy is outstripping inflation or almost leading the pack in the charge here on inflation, yet interest is low. So if inflation continues, whatever you borrowed your money at now and spent it, okay, you made money as the inflation keeps going upwards because the dollar becomes more and more worthless over time. I don't know, it took a matter of a week, I think, for the ruble to fall into a condition where it has absolutely no value anymore at all. Russians are moving over to cryptocurrency or anything else they can. It's that fast that economies can be trashed. And I would say right now, other than maybe, some of the ridiculous political unrest I see in the United States these days, because most of it isn't really based on anything that's real, A or B important. Not really, not in the long term. We got all kinds of problems that are really important facing us, and they are not whether we wear a mask or not. That's such a waste of human energy. It's unbelievable. But I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. Every time this whole energy crunch cycles around, because I've been seeing this since the 1970s, it gets worse in the impact that it has on us every time it hits. Why are we still here? Well, one reason is that there are too many of us that believe it's from the top down. You want to make a change? It starts down here and it runs up. If everybody had gone ahead and done what some of us have done, getting alternative energy on our buildings, buying EV cars as they came on the market, basically you would choke the energy industry as we see it today to death. It would have no use or value anymore. We would leave it behind in the dust like whale oil. But as long as we continue to say somebody else is the source of that problem, or we need the government to make these things change, Biden had his ideas that he was going to switch this whole mess over to EVs, and the chargers were going to come up across the country and so on and so forth. It was a great idea. It really was. As far as what will happen with it, timing, I don't see the guy as being two terms to begin with. He's not popular enough, so he ain't going to hang around long enough to see that these things actually happen. And then the circumstances were awful. Come in during a pandemic, and then on top of it, potential third world war in Europe, boycotting one of the larger nations on earth, and even taking McDonald's hamburgers out of the country. It's a seriously destabilizing situation that messes with everything, and he'll take the blame. Yeah, he'll take the blame for it. It'll happen. And he'll be out of office. What happens next is a good question. Sometimes vice presidents get elected after that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. And so on and so forth. So we may possibly be seeing another turn again within a few years to administrations that are totally anti-alternative energy. We've seen it before. It's historical. I don't even want to hear anybody challenge me on that one, because the pattern is there. Look for it, And so we'll see everything that might have been started this time around trashed again. They can't do that to you. They can't do that to you if you take charge. Yeah. This is on your backs, all of you. You want to see energy change? Change it. It's a matter of what's important to you. That's what it is. If it's important, you'll do it. If it's not important in your thinking, well, you won't. So that's why I wonder if this time around, with the absolute record price of fuel, if it might become important to some of you. And maybe, some of you are going to realize nothing's going to change unless you change it. You are the one who makes the world change. You do that by changing the way you think about the world. And I see a lot of thinking out there that it's kind of like we say in Wisconsin, whoa, he shot himself in the foot. I see a lot of thinking where people are stalling themselves. Yeah. We put roadblocks in front of ourselves by creating thoughts that say, oh, I can't do that, or that's not feasible, or that somebody else is responsible for this, or whatever, Give it a try. Hello, y'all hang loose.